I'm Ryan Atkinson.
And I'm John Sims.
John and I are partners with the law firm of Atkinson, Sims, and Kermode. Today we want to talk about a topic that's on everybody's mind, and that's the COVID-19 virus and the effect it's having on us on a national basis and, of course, on a local basis. During these times of uncertainty, whether it's financial or the well-being of our loved ones and friends, I think it's going to be likely that we're going to see people wanting to look at their options for when they start experiencing financial difficulties. And there are a variety of options. Bankruptcy, of course, is what our practice focuses on, but that's not always the answer for an individual situation. I know people frequently ask me about these companies they see advertised on TV, and we refer to them as debt settlement companies. There are also consumer credit organizations that deal differently with creditors. One of the things that's important to understand the difference, and if you've contacted one of these organizations, you need to understand exactly what service are they providing and what are the outcomes that you're likely to see. For example, if a company is going to settle your debts with your typically credit cards, what they're going to do is they're going to accumulate funds that you're going to pay in over a period of time. They're going to have fees. You need to understand what the fees are, and you need to understand what are the ramifications of debt settlement. And there are issues that come up, and it's important that each individual understands what these things are going, what types of effects long term it's going to have. For example, are there going to be tax consequences? For debt settlement, there can be tax consequences. What are the effects on your credit score? That is not always apparent when you first call these organizations. What I recommend to my clients is that I have them call a local office of a credit counseling organization. They will explain all these options because there are important differences, and you need to make sure that you're using a reputable company that is going to not only explain what the options are to you, but do what's in your best interest.
Ryan, we are fortunate in the state of Kentucky. We have a pricing. I do send people to them. They seem to work well with the creditors. It's not always the best option for anyone, but neither is bankruptcy. What they need to do is sit down with those people and talk to them. Being armed with information is very powerful, and them understanding what they can and cannot do and how it works is really important. You know, don't just assume that one thing is going to work for everyone. Sit down with the people, ask questions, ask about tax consequences, ask about where am I going to be in 5 years or 3 years. How's this going to work? Ask them how are they getting paid. I think all those things are important because you don't want to sit down with a credit counseling agency or an attorney or anybody else and not understand. So be sure to ask questions. It's important that you understand where you stand on all this.
And you mentioned information, and that's why at Atkinson, Sims, and Kermode we offer free consultation. At this time, because of the health concerns we're experiencing right now, we are offering phone consultations where we can sit down with our clients, discuss the situation. What we're trying to do is give information.
Right, and Ryan, that's exactly right. We give information. We're going to talk to you, explain the process to you. You're ultimately going to make the decision. We're counselors. That's why they call us counselors. We're not the judge. We don't make you do anything. We're going to say this is what you can do. And if you want to do it, great. If you don't want to do it, great. And you may not choose us as your attorney. That's okay too. But what you do need to be aware of is that you know exactly what's going on.
John, what kinds of questions are you getting right now regarding someone's finances, whether or not they're in bankruptcy?
You know, Ryan, what I'm getting is a lot of clients that are currently in bankruptcy, and they're wondering how they're going to get through this. What I have encouraged them to do is work with us, sit down, make phone calls, talk to your creditors. One thing you cannot do at this point is ignore things. You have to be proactive and not reactive. You know, we're getting a lot of people in the restaurant industry, hairdressers, things like that. Little or no income's coming in. So we're there to try to help them get through that. And there are steps we can take for them. It's just important that they work with us. What kind of things are you hearing?
Well, one of the questions you have for an individual, let's say that they're a waitress or a waiter, and now the restaurants are closed, they're going to have limited income coming in at this time. And something I've heard you discuss is prioritizing their expenses. What do you mean by that?
Well, I think the things that are important need to stay important. A place to live, your rent, your mortgage payment. If you have a car payment, try to make that car payment. If you can't make the car payment, work with your creditors or work with that creditor. It's important that you stay in contact. And that's what I mean by that. I'm sure not encouraging anyone to not pay medical bills or credit cards or anything like that. But sometimes that just becomes not a reality and you cannot pay those. So sometimes it's better to work with the ones that are actually necessary.
Well, I would definitely agree with that. I think in a time like this, when you have limited resources, by staying in contact with the critical creditors that you have, such as your landlord, mortgage company, car payments, even the utility companies, or even credit card companies, at this time, I think communication can be important. However, it may not always fix the situation.
Right. Ryan, what kind of things are you seeing or thinking might come for people that are not currently in bankruptcy but might be heading down the road for them that are heading to bankruptcy? What do you think we could do for them?
Well, I would say the best thing we can do for them is sit down and talk, because each situation is different. There are going to be opportunities coming in the next several weeks, we believe, such as Congress is proposing a payment to families and individuals to help them get over the hurdle. This is going to be money that should be used very carefully, and this would be a good time to consider how you're going to spend that on the most critical things that are affecting you and your family.
What I'm seeing is that unfortunately there might be some forgiveness where you might have some time on some things. But the problem is when this does settle down, and it's going to settle down, we know that, it's just we don't know when, these people's income will stay the same and they will continue, but they're not going to make up the income they lost. So it's going to be important for them to sit down with the professional and decide how can they deal with the bills that they've incurred during that time period.
So, John, I'll have a client that's in a Chapter 13 or even a Chapter 7 call me. They've already filed, but now they find themselves with some uncertainty. Do you have anything that you would tell them what they need to do during this time?
What I've done with my Chapter 13 clients is I've tried to suspend their payments, give them a breather for a while, not have that payment. That's hopefully going to be useful and helpful for a lot of people. Under a Chapter 7, it's a little tougher because a lot of times they have signed a reaffirmation or they have an obligation they need to pay. So what I recommend they do is they reach out to that creditor and say, what can we do to get this resolved?
I think that's a really good point. And the point is that you need to stay in contact. Whether you're a client that's in Chapter 13 now, we can ask for permission to do certain things, whether it's skip a payment under certain circumstances, or for individuals that are not filing but are starting to have a financial difficulty. By staying in contact with creditors, I think you will see that there are options available. The worst thing you can do is not do anything. While we're always happy to sit down and talk about options with our clients, but many people, bankruptcy is not what they're looking to do. And I know when I sit down at night, sometimes I turn the TV on, I see advertisements, I see national companies offering debt forgiveness or programs to help them with their debts. John, what do you see with these programs, and what do you recommend to clients or people that you talk to about options other than bankruptcy?
Ron, that's a great question. A lot of times what we're seeing is that they are going to the programs not fully understanding what's going on. My understanding is what they're doing, these companies are doing for the clients, is they're taking a pool of money. You pay each month money in. They do not immediately start paying your creditors. They let the money build up and they start settling with creditors. maybe one here, one there. Well, there's some issues with that. And the issues are that each creditor's not being paid. Because they're not being paid, you have creditors out there that are still enforcing and trying to come after you for debt collection, which can lead to lawsuits, sometimes garnishments, bank account levies, and liens on your property. It may be one of those things where you think, oh, I'm taking care of my debt, but you're not taking care of your debt. You're taking care of a debt. There are companies, and there's one locally by the name of Verizon, that actually takes your money you pay each month. They divvy it out to all your creditors. A lot of times they reduce the interest. A lot of times there's not a reduction in the principal, okay? It's just taking that money and divvy it out to everyone. What that does is it protects you, puts you in a position where you can succeed because all your creditors are being paid. I think that's always a good option for people to look at. I often have the conversation with clients and they say, well, what can I do? And I'll say, you can do three things with debt. You can pay it, but a lot of times by the time they see me, they can't afford it. You can ignore it, which doesn't work. Creditors don't just go away. They will come after you relentlessly. Now, there may be a creditor that goes away, and they may say it's not worth pursuing, but most of them won't. Or you can work out through a bankruptcy or through a company like a Verizon. What that does is it either gets a discharge of your debts, so you're no longer responsible for them, or you pay them back through a Verizon. So I think those are all things that someone could do with their debt. What kinds of things do you see people doing or misconceptions they have about these debt settlement places?
Well, I think the biggest problem that I see when I have clients that come in after they've gone to a particular company is they didn't understand exactly what they were getting themselves into. And I think if you don't understand what's the price that you're paying for their services, if you don't understand exactly the mechanism, how they're dealing with these debts, and if they haven't told you what you can expect after you've gone through the program, if successful, for example, are there tax consequences, then you need to go talk to someone else. As we all know, the authorities are recommending social distancing, and for that reason, at Atkinson, Sims, and Kermode, we are offering free consultations by phone. This will allow you to have access to the information that we hopefully will be able to provide to you to give you some peace of mind and also to give you some direction. So please call us, take advantage of the free consultation.
You're going to talk to one of us attorneys. You're not going to talk to our paralegal. They're not going to give you legal advice, but we can. And we can talk to you and try to set you in a position where you're going to be better. And that's what it's all about right now, is let's get everybody better, let's keep everybody safe, and we're going to get you there.